separation from the EU. So Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire here with me, and once again, several days in a row, the newspaper's dominated by coronavirus. There's the Eyes headline: UK virus cases jump as Italy shuts all schools.
Yeah, and also the Italy-England rugby match in a couple of weeks will be played behind closed doors now, which I think is a massive overreaction.
I think Italy said all its big sporting events behind closed doors.
I still think it's a massive overreaction. You're more likely to catch it in a pub than you are in a sports ground. But here we are, the biggest jump, 36 to 87 in the UK, in a country of 65, 66 million people. I do believe we need a sense of proportion here. I don't want to be opposite the boy who cried wolf and just be utterly complacent. I think it's quite right to take precautions, wash your hands and so on. But at the same time, we're in danger of talking ourselves into a huge crisis and a panic, which won't help at all. I think if you stay calm, wash your hands and carry on, it's the best thing to do.
Do you think that's right, or do you think that, given what happened in China, given what's happening in Italy, that it's right to make the public aware that it may start slowly, but it will escalate, and the authorities clearly feel that there's going to be an epidemic?
And they've done that. Now there's, Chris, in The Guardian is saying on their front page, there's a suggestion of the government is being unduly secretive about it because they're perhaps not going to do a daily update. Why do we need a daily update? Isn't that going to feed into that sense of panic, actually? Do we need a running total? I don't feel we do need.
Look at The Guardian. The Guardian, it's been going on the scare stories on this. A 70% increase is confirmed, right? 70%. Yeah, that's what is that 70% increase? Let's see. It's
26 UK.
Yeah, 36 new. 36. A sense of proportion, please, in a country of 66 million.
Within those cases, there are 3 today where it's hard to establish where it's come from. Yep. It's not directly linked to someone who's been to one of the affected areas, or that person themselves has come from the affected areas. So it implies that it's being circulated here, and so there are some signs.
But still no deaths on British soil. The only British man who died was on the cruise ship, and I wonder how many people since this scare started have died in Britain of influenza.
Well, Public Health England. So I think it's over the last 5 years, an average 17,000 people a year have died from influenza. Now, here, I'm all for freedom of information and getting updates, but do we need to be told, right, today there is somebody in, whatever the name of the town is, and there's somebody else in another city? It's almost creating that sense of panic. Now, you can say you have a right to know, I understand that, and perhaps we do. But at the same time, it's almost as if you're just trying to build up the panic.
And it is feeding the panic buying in the supermarkets, for instance. The Mail had we were in 3 towns today. I can't remember whether Cheltenham, was it Bath, and just shelves empty completely. Friends of mine who tried to get there online from Ocado or Tesco's told 5 days it's going to take for the order to go through, where normally a day. People are overreacting. They're buying up all these staples. People buying all this dried pasta. What do they think is going to happen? We're going to starve to death.
Perhaps they feel they might be in quarantine for a long time.
But for 2 weeks? 2 weeks you'd self-isolate for. So what, you've got to stock up for, as if, it's like back in the 80s when we had those, we feared the Cold War, people were stocking up.
That was your lot on the nuclear arms race.
Yeah, exactly. How many tins of tomatoes?
You lot will protect and survive, we will protest and survive.
But one more word on the information. Don't people who live in a local area want to understand if there are cases nearby? They might be more likely to modulate their behaviour if it's in their town.
You can get a pitchfork and go around and try and find out where the house is. I mean, you know what you're going to do, but what you're going to do...
go to public gatherings in that town, or...
I mean, that's a massive overreaction. You've got a case in a town, so everybody in that town stops going out and stays in their house or raids the shelves in the supermarket. I mean, the way you cope with any crisis is to be as normal as you can. Yes,
keep washing your hands.
If you've got it, then I can see the sense of you staying at home until it passes, get medical care and so on. I can see the sense in spreading statutory sick pay, although it's ridiculously low at just over 90 quid a week, and the very lowest paid won't be included, the self-employed, people on 0 hours contract. It should just be extended from day one permanently, everybody, anywhere. I see the sense in that, but it is just calm, and I'm surprised The Guardian has joined the likes of the Express in the scare.
Well, they want to attack the government. I mean, they're even turning this into a party political thing. But you know what I think? I think the person who's going to be the great star of this, if that's the right word, is the chief medical officer, Professor.
And the chief.
Yeah,
and the chief scientific advisor.
They're measured, they're calm, authoritative, and you just feel safe with them.
Well, yes, and do you think that the government's got it right so
Yes.
far in terms of spreading the right message?
Yeah.
There's been a lot about washing hands, hasn't there? And in terms of...
I think one of the few errors was when Johnson, with his two advisors, he stupidly said he'd been to a hospital and he was shaking everyone's hand, and they had some coronavirus cases when they didn't. I don't know what he was trying to prove there. There's a mixed message over whether or not you shake hands, but the chief medical officer said, well, it doesn't really, the key is to wash your hands.
Yeah,
you can shake your hands. I mean, this idea we're all going to become isolated
and actually
not have any social interaction would be a greater threat than the virus.
The benefit of this could be a real culture shift in this country, that we become more hygienic. Because if you go to a lot of countries abroad, you go to Singapore, those sort of places, you go into a shopping mall, there's these cleansers, they're everywhere, and people do it routinely.
You see a lot in public buildings for some time now. You go in, or some commercial buildings too, they'll have hand spray if you want to use it. Yeah, that's not a bad thing.
That could be a good concept, because that would mean a lot less pressure on the NHS, because of all the other infections we're not going to get.
And I understand if you're elderly, you're frail, if you've got a pre-existing condition, you will be particularly concerned. I see that, but you still want to get out and about, and you want people visiting you rather than boarding yourself up in your home.
And let's just bring in one other take on the story. This is on the front of the Metro. They have essentially led off with the fact that the latest James Bond film's release is going to be...
It's because they're worried that nobody will bother to go and watch it.
Well, they are worried about people avoiding because of mass gatherings, one assumes.
Exactly.
I think it's on the front of the Daily Mirror as well.
Yeah.
There we go. Bond falls victim to virus. And I don't know if we can go, just to really mess you around, go back to the Metro, because the photograph is an interesting one, isn't it? They've got someone there wearing a face mask with the poster behind them.
Yeah, no time to die.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, I think that's the type of film, doesn't it?
I know,
That's part of the thing, really. But they're delaying it for 7 months. They've obviously factored in. They think this is going to go on right through the summer. And, of course, it was explained to me yesterday that the virus will be less virulent in the summer, in the warmer months. That's the hope.
But look, this weekend, still go to the pub, still go to a restaurant, still go to the pictures, still go to a comedy night, still go clubbing if you're young enough. Do all those things. I just think...
Just don't go to the pub with Kevin, because you'll have to pay for the drinks.
And wash your hands.
Yes.
I wash my hands all the time. I have to often wash my hands of him, some of the things he says.
OK, let's try and squeeze in one more story, shall we, before we go to the break. And this is on the front of the Financial Times. Their main story, the headline is Immigration Crackdown Forces Watchdog to Trim Growth Outlook.
So, this is quite interesting, the Office of Budget Responsibility. It shows that migrants coming to the UK have contributed to the economy. They've always paid more in tax than they've taken out in benefits or services, and not having them come in because of the government's clampdown will actually affect the economy. So in the end, we will all pay.
Well, we'll see. It's a very popular policy, restricting immigration. Far too many people coming into Britain. Far too many. Too much pressure on services.
Most of them are from outside the European Union, aren't they?
But too much pressure. Well, we could stop it from outside the European Union as well.
We should have stayed in the European Union and gone off the world.
No. And people, it's a very popular policy, and that's why we'll talk about Priti Patel a bit later, I'm sure, in the programme. I hope she stays where she is, because she's going to enforce a good new tough immigration policy. Good.
And also just it flags up the fact that the budget is coming very soon as well, doesn't it?
Well, that's going to be completely overshadowed by the coronavirus.
Yeah.
I suspect the new Chancellor will not make as many decisions as perhaps he ordinarily would have done, because I think they're going to have to wait and see what impact this has on the economy, because this is going to lead to a massive slowdown in the economy. For instance, last night, just anecdotally, I was in a restaurant in central London, full friend, we're the only people in the restaurant at 10 o'clock. Yeah,
but every other restaurant nearby was full. It was just the one who saw you in the window and thought, I'm not going in there. Let's say, though, if the Chancellor and the government starts to use this as an excuse, Brexit's not working as well as they thought, there's going to be problems with trade talks, not big gains from the US, jeopardy with Europe.
Before this, there was a Boris bounce.
Economic growth is just over 1%.
Property prices were going up rather well. I mean, it was feeling pretty good. So, this whole coronavirus could be a major setback for the whole of the world. And Europe, remember, particularly in Eurozone, is already teetering on the edge of recession.
And a quick thought, just very briefly, should there be any kind of delay to negotiations over Brexit because of coronavirus, or should that just
No,
get on with it?
No, you need a trade deal.
Yeah.
Not sure we're going to get one, but we need one.
Okay. We are going to have a pause, but I'm just going to tell you now, don't forget Kay Burley at breakfast tomorrow morning, which will come live from the US. She'll have all the latest on COVID-19 too, including an interview with the Health Minister, Edward Arger, plus all the news from the Democratic primaries. That's Kay Burley at breakfast, live from Oregon from 7 o'clock in the morning. Meanwhile, coming up here on the press preview in just a moment, just how many votes can $500 million buy you? We'll ponder the rise and fall of Mike Bloomberg. That's coming up next. With me tonight, Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. And we're going to turn inside the Metro next and talk about Priti Patel. Been a lot of pressure on her, but Boris Johnson very much standing by her today.
Very robust, very clear, quite clever music there, putting the Home Secretary next to him in the chamber today.
How symbolic is that?
Very important.
She sat next to him at
Very important. He was telling, that was a very public statement. I'm sticking by her. Boris Johnson being loyal to this woman, probably more loyal to this woman than to any other woman. Any other woman could argue. But
she wants to be worried in that
Priti
case.
Patel is a tough operator. She's. I always find it strange that a woman of 5'2" is bullying all these men. But there's a tsunami of allegations against her.
All of which she denies.
It just feels to me like this is the civil service scenting blood. They think they can get a ministerial scalp. Remember, in the Home Office, they got rid of Amber Rudd. And the permanent secretary who resigned last Saturday, it was on his watch that she went. And she went after his officials gave her duff information, which she then presented to a select committee. She honourably resigned. There was an independent inquiry and she was exonerated. Why didn't the Mandarin quit? Why did he allow the Secretary of State to go? And I just think
why didn't Theresa May quit over Windrush?
Oh, exactly. And I just think here, this is a real get the minister move, because these civil servants know there's a revolution coming down the line in the form of Dominic Cummings, who wants to sort out these old permanent secretaries who think the civil service should be run for them and not by the politicians.
Even her colleagues who are loyal to her, similar political views, right? The Conservative Party supported Brexit, say she's very aggressive.
So what?
She's very aggressive. No, you can.
That's what make you a bully.
You have complaints in 3 departments. She's been DWP, international development. Let's not forget she got sacked from that because she freelanced foreign policy with Israel. And now with the Home Office, where you have a permanent secretary rejecting a juicy payoff because he would have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and he wouldn't do it. You've got to have an inquiry.
It's a buffed and tough.
I don't think you don't need a public inquiry, but that inquiry, I can't see how it can be by the Cabinet Office itself. When you've got Michael Gove, the head of the Cabinet Office, and now the Prime Minister, all of a sudden, judge and jury giving her a clean bill of health. You need somebody independent to come in to look at that. She's got a reputation for being very aggressive. You can cross a line from aggression into bullying. Has she done that? Well, the complaints are she has, despite her denial. So you've got to find out. You've got to get to the bottom of it.
It's also what one person defines as bullying and somebody else might not. She's a robust minister. She wants to get things done. The Home Office has not been fit for purpose.
Tory boy.
Since John Reid said so. Your mate John Reid said so. Not fit for purpose. It has not been fit for us for a decade.
You never take that.
Useless.
You never take that bullying definition with, say, John Bercow and the allegations against the former Speaker of the House of Commons.
Which
you're taking it with her.
Yeah. She was supposed to have bullied a permanent secretary on £188,000 a year, earning more than the Prime Minister. Well, didn't. Can I stand up for it? John Bercow was accused of bullying very junior members of staff.
You're getting in one of those arguments now where people say those who are in the military can't suffer depression. Of course you can. Yeah. Other people can bully because it's a power relationship. If you're the Secretary of State, you have a lot of power.
We haven't got much time. We want to talk about Michael Bloomberg, but there is, of course, that investigation. There's also possibly a court case as well. Let's move to this story, the picture story, on the front of The Guardian, though, because Michael Bloomberg has dropped out.
Good, because he just thought he could buy his way into the into the final two, or into the White House.
We've spent a lot of money.
About $500 million.
Nothing to him.
We've seen the limits to money, but of course now he has backed Joe Biden, and it's incredible that Sleepy Joe, as Trump is back from the dead. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. He now looks the favourite as the Democratic Party establishment rallies around him to stop Bernie Sanders, who I think would have a better chance against Trump, but nevertheless, it looks like it's going to be Biden.
But I don't think this bloke, this billionaire, recovered from when Elizabeth Warren said in that debate, let's talk about the rights, let's talk about that billionaire, let's talk about that billionaire who's made female employees sign non-disclosure agreements. I'm not talking about Donald Trump, I'm talking about Michael Bloomberg. It was devastating.
And she took him to pieces, but
She did.
she's not...
It's not done her any good.
She's going to back Sanders now.
But I think it helped finish him off.
I mean, she finished third in her own state.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, she was the sharpest debater. I would have loved it to go
But it does look like it's
head-to-head with
ending
Trump.
up as a two-horse race at the moment, doesn't it? And let's squeeze in cheekily a spitting image, shall we? Because it's coming back. We're all old enough to remember it first.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Sorry to drag you
but in
into that
an
age
age of fantastic computer graphics and whatever you call them, I think there's still a role for these puppets, and they are very good. And I know some people will complain they're in it, but the biggest complaints will be from those who aren't.
Yeah, absolutely. Dominic Cummings, of course, up in the corner. Trump is going to give them so much material. And, of course, this is going to be broadcast in America too. What's it called, that channel?
BritBox.
BritBox. And, of course, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, that'll give them something else to bellyache about, won't it? Because they're going to be parodied.
Well, yes, you've got Harry and Meghan.
Actually, the exception, people moaning about not being, it'll be Prince Andrew if he isn't in it.
Yeah.
Paedophile's friend, he'll be quite happy for that.
Who's the tall bloke, funny-looking tall bloke
Mark
behind?
Zuckerberg, apparently. But we're out of time. Thank you both. See you at 11:30. The Times says Parliament could be suspended for 5 months to prevent MPs from spreading the virus around the country. The Metro leads with the delay of the release of the new Bond film due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Their headline, Doctor Says No. That story is also on the front of the Daily Mirror. The Financial Times reports that the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility is likely to downgrade its economic growth forecasts over the government's crackdown on immigration from the EU. And the front of the Daily Star has a transport boss warning snowflakes that they have to be able to handle non-PC banter to work at his firm. So Andrew Pierce and Kevin Maguire here. We're going to keep it very PC, I'm sure.
Oh, no, please not.
Okay.
It just means respectful.
Okay. Anyway, let's move to coronavirus, shall we? Lots of the headlines once again on coronavirus. You picked up the Times's first of all, and the suggestion that Parliament could.
Well, that's a new. No, this is a new suggestion. So that's a new line. MPs may be a contagion risk. Parliament, of course, there's 10,000 people work there. Hundreds of, if not thousands, of tourists go in there every day too. So. Some of them may be coming from Italy and those sort of places. So, but they're saying Parliament could be shut for months. They should be careful what they wish for here, MPs, because people might decide, we've managed rather well without them actually for the last 3 or 4 months. And actually, when Parliament is there, they legislate. Half the time they mess things up. But it is a big story, and of course MPs go into constituency surgeries. Does that mean they're going to be cancelled too? And that's a very important part of an MP's work, but they're FaceTime with their constituents.
No, I think it's an interesting story on the front of the Times. I think it's a disturbing story. And if there is a national crisis, you want Parliament meeting. It met during the Second World War, the Blitz. So you want accountability and scrutiny in a democracy. If it's going to be a huge crisis, so I think that will be a major error. Maybe you reduce, as the Times say is an option, the number of people going into Westminster. I mean, almost every day you've got an office there.
People working remotely.
Yeah, you might do that, but you want MPs to be there. And you want the government to be scrutinised. And yes, I think it's great having press conferences in Downing Street. It's very good having interviews on TV, radio, the web, and in newspapers. But you also want ministers, prime ministers in the House of Commons being scrutinised. In Parliament. So.
And of course, we had a wave of headlines today, didn't we? All about some of the government's emergency plans, really in the case of the worst case scenario. And is that, in a way, what we're continuing to see? These are steps that could be taken should things get as bad as it possibly could do.
Yeah. And you look at what's happening in Italy already. Schools are closing for 2 weeks. Schools might have to close here. The government are warning about that. Well, some schools are already.
Oh, the chief medical officer said children are least at risk. It's older people. It's
the
vulnerable
impact would be on parents not being able to work if they had to.
Well, of course.
And if you're self-employed, particularly, and your children are at home from school, how do the self-employed get paid?
Well, how would the employed go to work if they got no childcare? And I think it is the impact of the panic could actually be worse than the impact of the actual crisis itself. And that's where I do think it is stay calm, wash your hands, and carry on where you can.
And that seems to be the government's message, but at the same time, they have announced what some of the contingency plans would be. Was that the right call, do you think, to be really transparent with people about...
I think so, as long as you don't panic people. And it's a thin line between reassurance and panicking. But you need contingency plans to stop the spread where people are found with it, and there's been a jump, we'll come on to that in a moment, but it's still a very small number of people. 17,000 people die on average over the last 5 years in England from influenza. Terrible for the families and the individuals affected, but I think we have to keep a sense of proportion on
I suppose
this
the concern about
virus.
coronavirus is that the death rate appears to be higher than the seasonal flu.
It does.
And then the chief medical officer said he thought the rate would be 1%. And I think flu is at 0.2%.
Or 0.1.
0.1, yeah, so it is higher. But I suspect still, and who knows, that more people will die of flu-related symptoms this year probably than will die of coronavirus. Remember, we haven't had a fatality on British soil yet.
That's very true. An awful lot to play out as well. There's an awful lot of unknowns at the moment of which direction it'll take. Let's move on to The Guardian, though. They leave with a headline about...
Well, I think this is silly. What secrecy? Because the government say they may not do daily updates on the number of cases diagnosed. Well, because they don't want to cause panic. We've already seen supermarkets, shelves stripped bare, because people are panicking, panic buying, and I don't feel they've been particularly secretive about this, the government.
Yeah, well, it looks like Public Health England, according to The Guardian here, is again a backlash because it's going to release information about new cases on a weekly roundup on a Friday rather than daily.
Fine.
But The Guardian's gone for a 70% increase in the intro to that story. 70% increase, right? What's that 70% increase? It is 36 new cases to 87. Like they haven't even got 100 cases yet. I mean, I just think a sense of proportion. You got to worry. You got to be concerned. I understand all that. You got to prepare. But let's not talk ourselves into a huge crisis. Now, of course, you don't want to be the opposite of the boy who cried wolf. You don't want to be just complacent. But at the same time, there's going to be there's a greater impact now with stock market falling. And
well, it's going to impact
people
on the budget
having schools shut when the government's saying don't do it.
And do you think that you would change your behaviour at all, given some of the messages that are going out at the moment?
I think so. If I saw some friends yesterday, and we kiss. Oh God, we're not supposed to be kissing, are we? Probably you would resist kissing and you would resist shaking hands. I mean, nobody ever wants to kiss Kevin Maguire anyway, so it's not an issue for him. But that's probably the sort of thing to change. But I'm not wearing gloves. The Queen was wearing gloves at that investiture.
Yeah,
and,
she's 93.
She's 93, and she much older people are more susceptible. But I mean, I've seen a lot of people wearing gloves on the tube, but I wouldn't wear a mask.
Yeah, well,
I just don't.
I've seen people wearing masks. There's no protection.
And they're ripping you off in the cost of it.
Yeah, just calm down. Wash your hands more.
I'm washing my hands more often.
Use sanitizer, but that would be better public health anyway, regardless
and that
of
certainly is the message, isn't it, that's coming out repeatedly. Let's just take in your paper, The Mirror, Kevin, and they focus on the fact that the Bond film release has been delayed.
It has until November. No Time to Die, maybe not be the best.
The film, that title is not great, is it really?
But are people really not going to the pictures now? Well, have we got this?
That's the suggestion, is it, that because of a big release, and presumably a lot of their audience will be in China as well, they're worried that people might not go to the cinema.
You could see globally, but, how close do you sit to people in the cinema anywhere? I mean, come on. I mean, this...
And interestingly, your paper has focused on coronavirus or a coronavirus-related story, and some of the front pages this week haven't been on the virus. How does it affect newspaper? How much interest is there? Does it affect newspaper sales?
Yeah, we didn't Monday because I edited Sunday. We didn't Tuesday. I think we did the day. Well, I can't remember what we did there. Actually, we found on Monday we got a sales increase by almost everybody else did coronavirus. We didn't. We did the number of people killed by criminals under private supervision from privatised probation.
I'm not sure we've led every day. I think at least one day we led on Priti Patel, the Home Secretary.
interesting. I think the Daily Mail is leading on it today.
Yeah.
But let's move on to another story that's been very big, or certainly big overnight, and there's more fallout today, and that is the US presidential election and the race to be the Democratic.
Good riddance to Bloomberg, actually. Yeah, what a flipping cheek,
Michael
thinking he
Bloomberg's
could
dropped out, hasn't he?
buy his way into the White House. I mean, how much had he given? $500 million?
$500 million, I think.
And
he
it
spent,
didn't win him a single caucus. Good, because
the-
that's not the way to win
But
politics.
it does. Back from the dead Joe Biden now, and it looks like Bernie Sanders is going to miss out, because all those who are dropping out, although Elizabeth Warren are going to go with Sanders, but Bloomberg and the others, Mayor Pete and so on, they're all backing Biden. It's the Democratic Party establishment.
It's an extraordinary
all
remark,
rallying
isn't
around.
it?
Yeah.
It is.
And it's also, as
incredible.
some of the other candidates have left the field, they've had a candidate to coalesce around to stop Sanders, because, I mean, Sanders is a socialist, Mick Maguire's...
Democratic social...
He's the Corbyn of the presidential race.
Come on, isn't it terrible wanting universal free healthcare when you're ill, getting...
Terrible
more
wanting a
people to
Corbyn candidate.
university, having a higher minimum wage.
Terrible
so
having a Corbyn
You do a
candidate.
week's draft and
they
you can
tend not
live...
to win. They tend not to win.
I think you'll find Sinn Féin in Ireland did very well on a Corbyn platform, if you like. Anyway, it is... I think Biden's a pretty unimpressive candidate.
And how do you think, if he were to win, and it's still kind of, Sanders is a very close rival, isn't he? How would either of them face up to Donald Trump in a debate? How do you think they'd fare?
Well, I mean, Biden has been very poor in debates, actually. Although in the last few days he's been energised, he's been sharper.
Yeah.
But I mean, he gets very confused and mixed up.
He has a blue-collar appeal in the States, so that will be a threat to Trump. I would imagine he's reasonably highly rated in the ethnic minority community from his association with Obama.
Yeah.
Maybe coronavirus will get Trump, not in the sense of actually catching it, but his response looked really, really poor.
And I suppose the
just
state of the economy is...
Well, it'll affect the economy too, and of course he wants to run on the strength of the
economy will be affected, but maybe Americans would like just a bit more stability after the weird world.
Amazing though, but the two front runners to take on Trump are 77 and 78.
Yeah.
So even
And Trump's no spring chicken.
Exactly. So even if,
is he?
just imagine if Biden wins, he'll be 82, 83 come the next term. He couldn't possibly run for a second term, could he?
Oh, I don't know. He's not really had a life of graft on a building site, has he? So
Who knows? Anyway, we must pause right there. And let me just tell you about Kay Burley at breakfast tomorrow morning. It's going to come live from the US, so plenty about those elections there. She'll also have all the latest on COVID-19, including an interview with the Health Minister, Edward Arger, plus all the news from the Democratic primaries. That's Kay Burley at breakfast, live from Oregon from 7 a.m. Meanwhile, coming up here in the next few minutes, the mounting scrutiny of the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, as new bullying allegations come to light. We'll be talking about that shortly.
A storm that hit Brazil's southeastern coast earlier this week has caused landslides and killed at least 16 people. Authorities say more than 5,000 people have been forced to leave their homes. Back in January, dozens died following heavy rain and landslides in the state of Minas.
Press preview with me tonight, Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. And we're turning to the inside pages of the Metro, no doubt picked up elsewhere as well. And this is the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, under a lot of pressure, but the Prime Minister backing her all the way.
he did had his Home Secretary there sit next to him at Prime Minister's questions, said he's sticking with it. Well,
And that's no accident. They didn't just
no,
sit
it'll be
down
very
next to each
deliberate.
other.
But given there was a Cabinet Office inquiry, I think he's been judge and jury already, which is why the call is out there for somebody independent to be used by the Cabinet
I'm just
Office.
going to cut in and see if you think that's a problem. It's Cabinet Office inquiry.
Well, but they're always done by the Cabinet Office.
Yeah, but when you've had such heavy political backing from Michael Gove, the Cabinet Office Minister, and now the Prime Minister, I think that's an error. See, well, they did it politically, but the bullying complaints are now from people who work with her in 3 departments.
She denies
And she denied, no, absolutely. Important to stress that. But if you're going to have an inquiry to look at it, they should get somebody outside in to do it.
She's got huge support in the Tory backbenches. The Prime Minister really likes her a lot. They're close allies, their political soulmates. And look, we have to wait and see what the inquiry says, but my view is this is the civil service out to get another cabinet minister, out to get another Home Secretary. They got rid of Amber Rudd from the same department 18 months ago by giving her duff information. Was it deliberate? Who knows? I think Priti Patel fights her corner. She's very determined. She can be abrasive. So what?
You never say any of that about John Bercow, the Commons Speaker, do you? You say straight off.
No, Kevin, John Bercow deliberately humiliated people in the Commons chamber and was accused of bullying very junior members of staff. She's accused of bullying, which he denied. She's accused of bullying £188,000 a year permanent secretary who should have offered to resign over the way Amber Rudd was stitched up like a kipper. Look, I tell you what I think is going on here. I think what's going on here is they know that if Dominic Cummings gets his way, there's going to be a revolution in the way the civil service is managed, and they don't like it. So they're striking
first. What do you think of that? Do you think this is about civil service being worried about reform?
Of course it is.
No, I think it's her. Look, even our supporters on the right of the Tory party who agreed with her on Brexit say she's very aggressive. They don't say she's a bully, but she says she's very aggressive. But sometimes when you're the boss, that can be perceived as bullying. Let's not forget she got sacked at International Development because she freelanced on her
I think there's a big difference between being assertive
foreign
and
policy
aggressive.
in Israel.
Okay, let's move on because we've got a couple of other stories that you're keen to talk about, and so am I. Inside the Mail, Spitting Image returning.
It's back.
It's back.
Oh look, and that's going to give the Duke and Duchess something else to bellyache about because they're obviously going to feature in the new Spitting
Image. They might love it.
I suspect they won't.
What with their famous sense of humour?
Yes, because they both had a sense of humour vibe, and of course it's going to be shown in America too because it's going to be on what's that channel called?
Is it BritBox?
BritBox. Which is why, of course, the Trumps are going to have a starring role. Dominic Cummings, who looks so little there like he's something out of The Hobbit.
Yeah, they clearly haven't done the puppet yet there.
No, exactly.
But sort of Meghan and Harry, I suppose, who will be really pleased therein. I would have thought Prince Andrew, as long as the paedophile's friend doesn't feature, he'll be very, very pleased himself.
Okay, and also a royal story inside the Metro that you wanted to touch on as well. The headline is Royals Rough It.
Going to a shop and going on a bus. I mean, isn't it? This is just everyday life. It just shows you how aloof they are and out of touch.
It's a clever headline, though. Look, Posh and Deck. Isn't that clever?
That's
very
good.
clever. That's in the Metro.
Charles and Camilla on the bus.
Metro.
That is good.
And look at the joy of the people on the top floor of that bus with them. Do you think Camilla knows what's going on that bus? I think it's her first time on it.
She's probably thinking, where's the buffet bar? Is there a buffet? Where does I get a gin and tonic? Yes, excuse me.
She's a very nice woman.
I'm wondering where's the gin and tonic. It's time to say goodbye.
Yes.
Thanks very much indeed.
Nice to see you, Anna. Yeah.